Common sense gun laws. I mean, given the title, you would think should probably include some common sense. So there's a lot of things in the world going on right now that kind of trouble my soul. And the seemingly global movement to disarm perfectly law-abiding, upstanding citizens is really catching fire. The UK, forget about it. Australia, forget about it. Now Canada, forget about it. I believe it was May 1st of this year, Justin Trudeau, made some pretty big leaps with the gun control laws there in Canada. And I want to kind of reach out to my liberal friends that I have, and it's your opinion here that matters to me. All of my friends that are, gun friendly, that are Second Amendment supporters, yada yada, they're not going to be the ones that do that to us. It'll be you guys, and where you decide to place your decisions. Now, I know maybe a lot of you think that, we don't really have anything to worry about from our own government. In which case, I point to you to the UK, I point you to Australia, where people are getting arrested and thrown in jail for exercising free speech. Yeah. You would expect to see that in China, right? Expect to see that in Russia, right? United Kingdom, Australia, Canada's going to be next. Now, keep in mind that the Second Amendment is, in my opinion, intended to protect the First Amendment. It's intended to protect your right for life, liberty, happiness, and it's intended to protect your right to be able to speak and to speak up against your government. Point in case. Remember when all of those conservative people grabbed their guns and stormed their federal buildings in their towns and stuff like that, and the left side of the spectrum freaked out, used it as an example of white privilege, as a matter of fact, because they're like, there's no cops, nobody's stopping these people, nothing. It has nothing to do with the color of those people's skin or their political affiliation. It had to do with the fact that they were armed, and they were armed better than the police. That's exactly what it was. And the proof to this is because now we have, forgive me, I forget what they call themselves, NCAA something, I have no clue. But now we have the group that is doing the same thing as those conservatives did on the more left side, right? I wish I could remember what they call themselves, but I guess maybe like an equivalent to a more modern kind of Black Panther group. So we have a bunch of African Americans now completely geared up, just like those conservatives were, marching down the street. Where were the cops? Where was the tear gas? Where was the baton sticks? Nowhere, right? And in different scenarios, a bunch of African American people gathered together without guns, and it seems like all there is tear gas and baton sticks, right? So you absolutely do need to protect yourself from individuals who wish to cause you harm and from a government that wishes to cause you harm. Now, so now that's kind of the premise of my mind frame here. But I actually have a few guns here I want to show you guys, because this is where it gets kind of interesting and where I really want to open up some more eyes, particularly on the, lefter, more anti-gun side of the spectrum. So if you allow me, let me show you a few things. Okay. I have here 3 pistols. Now, primarily around the world, it's been a lot of rifles primarily under attack, right, from their politicians. Pistols will be next. We already have some in my opinion, bogus gun laws here in the country. And I'm hoping that this video will help show you how not common sense these common sense gun laws really are. So, first gun I would like to show you. Revolver. Yeah. Cool, right? I mean, fucking cowboys, yeah, right? Looks cool. You know, and a lot of people aren't, you know, have kind of moved on from the revolver stuff, and they prefer, you know, your other types of guns here, but I still like a good old revolver. Now, this guy right here, yep, shoots bullets. Bullets kill. Doesn't matter the size of the bullet. Doesn't matter the weight of the bullet. You hit somebody in their heart, and they're going to die. You hit somebody in their hypothalamus, they're going to die. It's a deadly weapon, correct? This pistol here, noisy cricket. This little guy, look at this thing, cute, right? So this guy here is also a deadly weapon, made to kill. That's what all guns are made to do. This weapon is made to kill. My personal favorite, this guy. This guy here is my everyday carry. Favorite pistol I've got. And I enjoy it very much. Big, right? It's definitely bigger than the other two. You know, kind of almost even like menacing looking, some might say. Right? Now, interesting thing. Which one of those three guns do you think is the most dangerous? A lot of you may say this one. You may say that, and I could see why you could say that, because a lot of people's mindsets on weapons is based off of emotion and looks. This gun looks scarier than the rest. It's bigger than the rest. It holds more bullets than the rest of them do. But the bullets are kind of irrelevant, really, about how many they hold. Most gunfights where a civilian is involved in defending themselves or someone else, like 5 or less shots are ever even fired. Okay, so that doesn't really matter too much. As a matter of fact, most gun deaths happen from suicides. They happen from accidents where children or untrained individuals are handling the weapon and there's a negligent discharge. Keep that in mind, because that's going to become relevant here in a minute. A lot of you may say, like I said, that one's the most dangerous. The real answer to that question is this one. This one is the most dangerous. I'll explain that to you in a minute. Okay? All right. Now, also interesting, in a lot of states here in the United States, California, you know, New York, all that stuff, one of these pistols that I have here is illegal to own in those states. And I bet you can guess which one that is. Yes, again, this one, this big, scary, mean gun. I couldn't own this if I lived in, say, New York City. And the reason why I could not own this weapon if I lived in New York City is because of this. This magazine holds 15 rounds. That makes it illegal in that state. This gun does not have a magazine that holds less than 15 rounds. So these, 10-round limit on magazines actually restrict people from being able to have access to this pistol right here in my hand and many other similar guns. Okay. Now, let's talk about how bogus that is. Now, again, our biggest worry about people getting hurt, aside from suicides, which is just kind of another realm of its own, is negligent discharges. Children getting a hold of these weapons, untrained people getting a hold of these weapons and hurting themselves or others. You might be wondering, how come I held up the revolver as the most dangerous gun that I have sitting here? I did that because as far as safety mechanisms go on the weapon, the thing hardly has any. None whatsoever. However, the ironic part is, if I laid these 3 weapons out in front of you, and you had your child there, your niece, your nephew, whatever, and I said, pick one of these guns to go ahead and learn this youngin' here how to start shooting, almost guarantee, I gotta put some money down on the table that you are going to grab this one, aren't you? This is the one you would pick up. This is the less intimidating looking one. It's more simpler, more basic, less bullets, whatever your reasoning is. I can guarantee most people are going to pick up this one. Okay? In reality, if I had my children, the ones who are old enough to hold guns, they all know how to shoot. But I would much rather train a brand new, never held a gun before in their life individual, actually, with this one. This is also the gun that's illegal. Weird, right? Gets even better. So this gun here, I can own anywhere in the United States. I can have this pistol. Okay? This pistol has one real safety mechanism. You have a little lever right here. I don't know if you can see it. That flips up and down. That lever is easily toggled, as you can see. This can get accidentally toggled and you won't notice. You can definitely change the state of the safety on this weapon easily and accidentally. Okay. Now, if you're not familiar with how these things fire, quick rundown, long story short, a hammer comes back, slaps a firing pin hits the bullet goes boom, right? Now, this weapon right here has, in the state that it's in right now, which I've got the safety off, right? It has nothing that is going to stop this hammer from striking the firing pin if this trigger is pulled. This is a 22 mag, which is a rimfire cartridge, so I cannot dry fire this weapon. That is damaging to the gun. But if this were to come slamming down, it is going to hit the firing pin and a bullet is going to go off. Now, theoretically, you have to pull the trigger to do that. Conscious decision, right? Hammer comes down, boom, cracks the firing pin. Let's say you're teaching your kid how to shoot, and they go ahead and crack this thing back, and then they drop it. They drop this gun. This is stored energy. In this state, it doesn't have any energy. Now we've got stored energy. They drop this gun, this disengages, it shoots. Dangerous. Now, let's say that the safety is off on this, which, as I showed you, can easily happen. The safety is off. Fucking tumbleweeds, guys, man, living in the desert. Hold on, you gotta see this. Now, the safety, man, now let's say the safety is off, right? If this hammer is in the rested position like it is, there's nothing in between the hammer and the firing pin here. I can take my hand and slap the back of this gun and it will shoot a bullet. If this falls out of a holster, even without that stored energy, if this falls out of a holster and hits the ground, it can shoot, okay? Very dangerous, very, very dangerous. Now, it has another little safety mechanism. You can kind of semi-cock this. Now, I don't know if you heard that, but there was a click. Now, you can see that there's space in between the hammer and the firing pin now. So, theoretically, if you hit this, it's not going to fire. If you drop this, theoretically, it's not going to fire. However, there is a little bit of stored energy here. So this stored energy is relying on a mechanism to hold it back. Mechanisms fail, right? And when it comes to deadly weapons, we don't take chances. We don't take risks. It's not about looking cool and showing off and looking like a cowboy with a cool little revolver or whatever. This gun is simply dangerous. This gun is dangerous to people who are untrained. Now, if you do like these style weapons, now there are this particular revolver. Not all revolvers function the same way, by the way. This particular revolver does. If you do like to carry these types of weapons, what I would recommend, because it's what I do for safety, this holds 6 bullets. I only load it with 5. That way, when this hammer is in the rested position, because I don't like toggle safeties like this. Even on guns that have them, it's my personal decision. I don't use them. Excuse me. I don't like them. Now, if now that this I keep this in the rested position because I don't want this like this. From what I just told you, and if I ever do have to use it, I don't want gunk or debris or anything to be in between the hammer and the fire pin, which it can clearly get in right there. So, this thing right here, I generally carry with the hammer down in the rested position and the cylinder underneath the hammer empty. That's why I only put in 5. So if this does fall out of a holster, if I drop it, if God forbid something like that does happen, and this does slam and engage the firing pin, it has an empty cylinder underneath it. Thus, no bullet, no shot, nobody gets hurt. Okay? This gun is not for you to teach your kids on. This little guy right here. Now, a lot of people like smaller guns like this because, people with small hands or females or whatever, they think it's better for them or a better fit, which I also disagree with. This gun and this gun right here, this gun carries a little smaller bullets. This one carries bigger bullets. This gun, believe it or not though, kicks harder. This gun is far less accurate. And it makes a louder boom. It is much louder. This gun is actually a little hand cannon, and its real intended purpose is to be kind of a backup weapon. If your primary fails, or you need something a little more easy to, how do I put that? If you have this gun, which is kind of big and awkward and noticeable and stuff like that, and somebody disarms you with and takes that from you, or you're worried that they're going to notice you drawing it out, you can have this as a backup, but this is only going to be good right up close. If you don't have a gun with a barrel this short that you practice with constantly, I guarantee you're going to miss a shot that's 10 yards in front of you. You're going to miss it. It's very inaccurate. Also, about the safeties here. This gun has no external toggle safety whatsoever, which I don't have a problem with. Now, it boils down to opinion, but I mean, it's opinion backed up with a lot of logic. You should carry with a round chambered. If you're not comfortable enough with your weapon to carry it with a round chambered, you need more practice. You need to learn more about how this thing functions. Now, this bad boy here, if you chamber around, it's empty. See? No bullet. But if you chamber around, okay, and then now you're going to store this into your holster. You notice that this one doesn't have a hammer on the back like I was talking about with the others. The revolver. It has an internal hammer. You cannot decock this hammer. The only way to decock this hammer is to pull the trigger, right? But if you carry this chambered, you have the round chambered, then your magazine goes in, and then it gets put away. And when you do it like that, you're going to be walking around with a pistol that has stored energy in it. That hammer is going to be cocked back the whole time you're walking around with this. It, of course, has mechanical safeties inside of it. The only way that this should be able to fire a bullet is if the trigger is pulled. The trigger gets pulled, removes the safety internally, and the hammer can make full contact with the firing pin. However, what did I say about mechanisms? You're going to trust your life to a machine? You're going to trust your life to a little piece of metal inside of this thing? You're going to trust your family's life, the people around you? No. So this one right here, while in my pretty sound opinion, a little bit safer than this revolver, still has a potential for an issue, still has a potential for, a discharge to happen due to negligence or dropping or stuff like that. This one here, As scary as it might look, as more intimidating as it might look, and with as many bullets as it might hold, which by the way is 15 in the magazine. I don't know if I mentioned that. Notice this one does have an external hammer. I like that. There's actually a bunch of features about this gun that I like, but that's irrelevant to this particular video. Now I always carry with a round chambered, right? Now when you chamber a round, you give it that, and you'll notice my hammer is now back. When the hammer on this revolver is back, the only way to put it down is to pull the trigger and ease it down. If your thumb slips off of that and there's a round underneath that, it is going to go off. I saw a guy put a hole through his Toyota floorboard doing the same thing with a 45, easing down the hammer. Thumb slipped off the hammer, but blam, shot a hole right through his truck, right? That's why you always keep these things pointed in a safe direction. This one, though, this one has some similar internal safeties as the Noisy Cricket does, right? So the only way to remove that safety from the that protects the firing pin from getting hit by the hammer is to pull the trigger. Just like that little gun, same thing. If I were to drop this gun and this hammer slammed down, there's a mechanism in there that should stop it from hitting the firing pin and firing a bullet. You can only remove that by pulling the trigger. However, what about letting that hammer down? Stored energy. I don't like walking around with guns that have stored energy. So I like this one because even though it has this hammer, it's also a double action. So I can let this hammer down, right? I've got no stored energy here. If I drop this gun, it's not going to go off. It shouldn't go off. Never say never. And if I need to use it in a quick pinch, as I pull the trigger, you'll notice that hammer moves. That means it's a double action. You can pull the trigger and the hammer goes back, or you can pull the hammer and then pull the trigger. What happens is the difference between the two is if you're pulling it like this, it's got a pretty heavy trigger pull. That's intended to make it to where, hopefully you don't pull this trigger on accident and have the gun go off. When the hammer is back, did you see that? Notice that the trigger moves back with it. Now it's got a much lighter and shorter trigger pull in order to fire this gun. See that? Now, what makes this weapon here even safer is that if this hammer is back and you do have a round chambered, which this pistol is unique, it has, where are you, baby? It has a little indicator. When there's a round chambered, this little metal tab will stick up, to kind of remind you that there's a round in there. When this thing is cocked back, if I want to release this stored energy, because I've already stated my reasoning for that, if I want to release this stored energy, I don't have to risk this hammer slipping out of my thumb and putting a hole through my Toyota. It's got a decock button. You push this lever right here down, which is on both sides, which is why you see it moving. You push this lever down and watch this. Hammer goes down. The hammer goes down without pulling the trigger, which means that mechanism inside that protects the firing pin is still in place. Hammer goes down, no bullet goes off. This is by far the safest of these three weapons that I have out here. And this is the only one that your common sense gun laws ban a lot of Americans from owning. Food for thought, my guys and girls. So that's all I'm asking, just a little common sense, because I think the state of events in the world right now are showing people that you do need to protect yourself and you do need to be ready. Bye.